Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbithe, and in this session we are going to learn about essays, specifically narrative essays. Remember, in the two previous sessions we learned about planning for an essay and then when you come to actually writing the essay. Now we are going to go into the different types of essays, and we are going to start with narrative essays. We are going to define what a narrative essay is and the features of a narrative essay. So before we go into narrative essays, it is important to know that if you're given a topic to write about, you can approach that topic in different ways. So if you are given, let's say, the topic day schools and boarding schools, we will use this topic as our base topic to understand the different types of essays that you can write. So if you're given day schools and boarding schools, there are different ways you can approach this topic. There are different ways you can write about this topic. So number one, you may decide to tell a story about day schools, tell a story about boarding schools. So when you decide to tell a story, what you're doing is that you're writing a narrative. You're narrating. You're giving a narration. So that is called a narrative essay. You can also decide to describe what happens in a day school and to describe what happens in a boarding school. When you choose to describe, the kind of essay you will come up with is called a descriptive essay. You can also choose to explain the process of getting into a day school or to explain the process of getting into a boarding school. And the kind of essay you come up with is called an argumentative essay. You may also choose to express your thoughts and your feelings, your personal thoughts and your personal feelings about day schools and about boarding schools. And this kind of essay is called a reflective essay. You can also decide to consider the different aspects of day schools and boarding schools. And this is going to be called a discussion because you're looking at the different aspects of whatever your topic is. And lastly, you can choose to propose arguments for and against the situations in day schools and in boarding schools. This is called an expository essay. So in subsequent videos, we'll be looking at these kinds of essays one by one. And so because these essays are different, each essay requires a different approach. So we won't approach them the same way. We're going to approach them in different ways, a different format of organizing and developing the plot of your essays. And this different way of approaching a topic is called a pattern. So each of these essays has a pattern that it follows. So let us now go into narrative essays, and just from the word narrative, to narrate is to tell a story. So for example, the novels that you read, the short stories, most of them are narratives. They are narrating a story. So if you're given that topic, day schools and boarding schools, and you choose to approach it from the narrative way, you're going to tell a story, and this story develops paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence. So what are some features of narratives or some characteristics of narratives? The first thing that a narrative has is the title. This title should be short and should also catch your reader's attention. It may hint or should hint at the main happenings of your story and should make your reader curious. So, for example, when you write day schools versus boarding schools, it is giving a hint that whatever this person is going to read will be about day schools and boarding schools. And it is very short, but it is also catching your attention. The second feature is the message or the plot or the body, which is the central idea of the narrative. This is where you now tell the story. of whatever it is that you're talking about. After that, we have the characters. The characters are the people who participate in the events in your story. So if you're writing a narrative essay about day schools and boarding schools, you may want to include some characters because you're telling a story. So maybe you're telling a story, you have two characters. One character is one who has gone through day schools. The other character has gone through boarding schools. So that is what characters do. They also help you to develop the plot of your story. Plot, remember we said, is the flow of ideas. So next we have the plot, what you've just talked about. You have said that the plot is the flow of ideas. It is the actions, the situations, the sequence of events in the narrative. That is what we call the plot. Another feature of narratives is the emotions and relationships. Remember, we have said that your story has characters. So as these characters are developing, as these characters are interacting with one another, things happen to them, good things and bad things, and they react in a good way or in a bad way. So this, how they react, these feelings, this way that they're interacting is what gives meaning to the story. It helps the story have meaning and also create relatability to the reader. Another feature of narrative essays is dialogue. And dialogue is when two people are communicating, when two characters are communicating to one another. Remember, in grammar, we learned about the direct speech and the use of quotation marks when you're quoting exact words from a speaker. So when you have dialogue in your essay, remember to use the quotation marks. And so try as much as possible for your dialogue to be natural and appropriate for your characters. Another feature is the setting, and the setting is where and when the action of a narrative takes place. So the place and the time. These two things bring about the setting of a narrative. So, and the setting can be in one place or different places. It does not have to just be one place. And as a writer, be sure to be clear on the setting. If something is happening at this place, make sure it's clear. If it's happening at this time, make sure you explain that clearly so that it is easy for the reader to understand your narrative. And the last feature we are going to look at is the language and the style. So, what is style? In literature, what is style? It is the verbal identity of the writer, which is largely determined by the author's choice of words, what is called diction. And the language used by the writer helps to reveal the tone or attitudes towards the event, the message, or the character. And later we will learn about stylistic devices and the different stylistic devices that are there, like metaphors, similes. We'll look at this later, but style is important when it comes to narratives. So as the writer, make sure you have good choice of words. So with those features in mind, let us now go into the writing of the narrative essay. How do we organize our essay? We start with the title. That is the first thing. Remember, we said that the title should be as short as possible and catch the reader's attention quickly. After that, we go into the introduction. Now we are in the body of the narrative. We have now started to write. We start with the introduction. So the first sentence, the first paragraph, that is the introduction. That is what is introducing us to the essay. And the opening sentence can be short. It can even be a question to just welcome us into this essay. And it's at this point in this introductory paragraph that we introduce the main character or the leading character and the setting of our essay. Where is it set? We also introduce that in the introductory paragraph or introductory sentence. So, and this paragraph also needs to state the theme of the narrative. It may not directly state the theme, but it should give us an idea of what it should give us an idea of the narrative. What is the theme of this particular narrative? So after we have introduced our narrative, we now go to the next stage, which is the body. The body is usually the largest part of the essay because this is where you are now narrating your story. It can have as many paragraphs as possible, and try to make these paragraphs as detailed as possible. Do not leave anything out. Make sure everything is well captured and that the paragraphs are in order. So as I read this essay, the events are happening in a certain order. And so you can use as many descriptive words as possible. For example, it is okay to say she walked to the house. It is grammatically correct. It is understandable. But you can also decide to spice it up by saying she walked briskly to the house. So just use of that one word, briskly. It gives us an imagination. It gives us an image of how was she walking. Yes, she was walking, but how? She was walking briskly, and that makes your narrative be more enjoyable. And after that, after now you have written the body, you have written whatever number of paragraphs you are writing, it is now time to conclude your essay. So the ending is signaled by the event that shows some kind of satisfactory solution to the conflict in the story. Now the ending can be happy, it can be a happy ending, but it can also be a sad ending. So as you write your narrative, that is something to also think about. Don't just end without ending. Don't leave your reader floating. End with either a happy ending or a sad ending. That is what we call the conclusion or the last paragraph. So that's it for narratives. I hope you have understood and you're now able to write a narrative essay. You can have a look at the quiz for further practice. Write an essay on the following topic: the most interesting wedding I have ever attended. So you can narrate a story on the most interesting wedding you've ever attended. Make sure that in your essay we can see why was it interesting, what made it interesting. Remember to use as many descriptive words as possible. Thank you for tuning in and see you in the next session.